Hi, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about how dangerous and how safe the Philippines is. We're going to be looking at a number of different things, but first I'm just going to be sharing my experiences from when I was in the Philippines. And when I was there, I never once felt in any real danger. The most danger I really felt in was when I was on the roads in the Philippines. Let's be honest, the roads in the Philippines aren't really that safe. There's a lot of road accidents there. I've even witnessed a few from when I was driving on roads in the Philippines. Most highways there just only have 2 lanes, so they could really do with a lot more development, so they can be extra lanes, so like when, you know, cars and buses overtake, that they won't be driving on the other side of the road. But in terms of just like the people and the communities and the areas there, I never really felt in any danger from when I was in the Philippines. If we're going to talk about danger and safety, it's worth mentioning, you know, some of the natural disasters that happen in the Philippines. So the Philippines is on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so it's prone to typhoons, floods, volcano eruptions, earthquakes. But unfortunately there's not really a lot we can do about these. It's just important to be prepared for these if you are in the Philippines. And it's not even all parts of the Philippines that will suffer from these. But in terms of the people and the areas and the cities, for the most part, they're really safe and you don't really need to worry. And I never really had any issues when I was there. And I'd love to just leave it there and be like, the Philippines is safe and you don't really need to worry about anything. But unfortunately, that wouldn't be completely true, because there definitely are some areas that have suffered with a lot of problems. It's really important we don't just sugarcoat everything and we actually talk about issues so that they can be addressed. Because if you don't do that, the country's never going to improve and we're all just going to live in this fantasy world. One thing that would really surprise a lot of non-Filipinos is that if you look at the terror index from the UN, the Philippines is 10th highest. It's actually improved. If you look at other sources as well, they'll be similar, and the Philippines has always been in this situation for decades now. Most non-Filipinos would not expect this at all, because our news don't really cover things that go on in the Philippines. The only thing they really did cover was the first year of Duterte's presidency. They were happy to cover what went on there, because for some reason, you know, media in the West were really against Duterte. So they almost exaggerated what went on there. But in terms of other things that the Philippines has been through, they don't really report a lot, so people outside of the Philippines aren't really aware of what's gone on. One of the main reasons why the Philippines is so high in those statistics from the UN is because of the ongoing Moro conflict, which is basically to do with there being civil unrest in southern parts of the Philippines, where some communities wanted autonomy and in some cases even independence from the rest of the Philippines. Thankfully there is now a peace agreement, but there are still some repercussions from this, because there was one breakaway group in the 90s that then took really extreme beliefs, and it wasn't even about independence or autonomy for them. In 2017 they took over Marawi City, which led to months of unrest in that area. Thankfully it's all over now. It was resolved by the military and the government and the police, but that group does still have some presence in parts of Mindanao. For the most part, Mindanao is really safe. Most of Mindanao, you shouldn't have any issues at all. You've got places like Davao City, which is the biggest city in Mindanao, and it's one of the safest cities for that size in the entire world. It's one of the safest places in the Philippines. But then on the other hand, on the other side of Mindanao, you've got places like Jolo City, which is statistically one of the more dangerous places in the country. And it is important we look at things like that. We can't just pretend that everything's perfect. And when I bring up issues, I'm not saying this to try and discredit the Philippines. I'm not trying to make out it's really bad. I'm not even saying you shouldn't go to these places. It is wrong though when there's been some foreign YouTubers that have gone to statistically dangerous parts of Mindanao and they've just completely lied about the safety situation, and they were just Pinoy baiting the whole time, because it's just spreading false information. And there are people that have genuinely suffered in those areas, and we shouldn't just turn a blind eye to that. A good example of a foreign vlogger who did a vlog in Bangsamoro, in one of the more dangerous parts of Mindanao, in the right way is Commander Daot, who at the start of his vlog did address the safety situation, and then the rest of the vlog was really positive and it promoted the area. But then at the start of the video he did address the situation, as I'll show you a clip from his video now.
Mindanao is not a place you can just rock up to and travel, and I can't stress that enough. But with the right people, I was able to ensure my safe passage of Mindanao.
So it was important that he did that, just so he's not spreading any false information and he's actually addressing the situation for what it is. I mean, it could be dangerous for tourists if you just encourage people to go somewhere where it wouldn't be completely safe for them to go. And it's also just turning a blind eye to Filipinos that have suffered in those areas. We should be aware of what's gone on for them. And it's not even just those parts of Mindanao, even in Luzon and other parts of the Philippines, I've got other groups like the MPA that have extreme beliefs and can be dangerous to some people. And here's the thing, whenever foreigners donate money from the West, they usually give money to African countries because they know how much need there is there, or they'll give money to the Middle East because what goes on there actually does get reported by, you know, our news medias, but we don't really hear a lot about the Philippines, so not many people here realise how much need the Philippines actually needs. So we shouldn't just talk about these so the Philippines can get money from other countries. It's more for the sake of Filipinos so that they can be aware, so they can actually try and address these issues by bringing them up, because like I said earlier, if you don't talk about these, you're never actually going to improve them. The country's not going to get better. It's good to be aware of these so you can actually, you know, try and move on, try and progress. Thankfully, the Philippines is improving. It is getting safer. And if you just go to any city in the Philippines, and most parts of the Philippines, there's a lot of security around. It does feel safe. So you really don't need to worry too much. It's just the issues I was talking about earlier, that it is disappointing that a lot of Filipinos have suffered through these. And it's not even the fault of Filipinos in that area. If you look at Bangsamoro, most people in that part just want to live peaceful lives. But then it's just this small minority of people that make everyone else's life really difficult. But hopefully that can change in the future, and hopefully those parts will get safer, and they are getting safer, but there's still a lot of progress to do, and we need to talk about these issues to actually improve them. So to answer the question, is the Philippines dangerous or not, you can't really definitively answer this with like yes or no. Most of the Philippines is really safe. You don't need to worry at all if you're like a tourist, or even if you're like a Filipino. It's, you know, there's, like I said, there's a lot of security everywhere. But there doesn't even need to be security in most parts. Most Filipinos are just really friendly, and you'll just feel really welcome when you're there. But then it's just important to be aware of some parts that have had issues and are still going through some issues. But yeah, thanks for watching. Give this video a like, and please share this around so we can spread this information, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already so you won't miss out on any new uploads. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.